Chuck Black, and this is the Age of Ingenuity, our weekly chronicle of Canada's current innovation economy.
Hello, I'm Brian Orlotti, and here are a few of the stories we're tracking. And first up is an announcement from the Canadian Institutes of Health Research on the Government of Canada website titled Government of Canada Invests $27 Million in Coronavirus Research, Details of the Funded Projects. To contribute to global efforts to address the 2019 novel coronavirus outbreak, on February 10th, 2020, the Government of Canada launched a rapid research funding competition. Canada's researchers were quick to respond, submitting hundreds of applications in just a week. Many other researchers volunteered their expertise to peer review the applications received so that the funding competition could be completed in record time. The result is that the government has been able to fund 47 research projects that will provide new evidence on how to address COVID-19.
So it sounds like just about every department in the federal government has a war chest to hand out to people who are doing research and development, looking for cures for the COVID-19 virus. Is that a fair assessment of the situation?
It is indeed, and it's definitely clear that they're tapping all their reserves in this time of crisis.
And that makes perfect sense. It follows along the path of the Americans and the Europeans and most governments around the world who are essentially flooding the market with funds to ameliorate problems, look for solutions, and help out the public. It's almost the opposite of the 2008 crisis, where the governments of the world gave all this money to banks of the world. Now, at least the money seems to be going out to the people.
Yes, and viruses don't discriminate, so they're almost the ultimate equalizer.
Fair comment. Fair comment.
And building on from our first story, here's a piece from inverse.com, one of several groups that believes they have found a cure for COVID-19, titled Chloroquine, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, the strange story behind the cure for COVID-19 that's going viral. We know how to slow the spread of COVID-19, social distancing, hand washing, etc. But as more people become infected, scientists are moving quickly in search of a cure. But the internet is moving faster. On Tuesday, March 17th, a small preliminary study on the anti-malarial drug chloroquine, pronounced chloroquine, as a treatment for COVID-19, published online. While the findings are tentatively promising, the study has been blown into something far bigger, thanks to the power of Elon Musk's 32 million followers on Twitter and a Google Doc. By Thursday, March 19th, President Donald Trump addressed the use of chloroquine directly, stating that it has shown, quote, tremendous promise.
This is a logical progression of our media landscape today. Somebody has a suggestion, somebody else posts it online, and pretty soon the solution, the suggestion, the cure perhaps, are being pushed to the forefront of research and development efforts, and it's forcing the powers that be to address it. Is that a fair assessment of the situation?
Yes, and it goes to the benefit of a distributed communication system like the internet, and that multiple independent groups can test and analyze and verify or disprove various leads on a cure, or at least some kind of stopgap measure such as this. I had a similar link forwarded to me by a colleague at my workplace where doctors in India are researching the same drug, chloroquine, but in a cocktail with various other medications. I believe one is an anti-cancer drug and a bunch of other drugs, in the hopes that this could serve as a cure. Although, as I understand, there are several serious side effects to it, and rather than a cure, it would more likely be a stopgap measure, and more than likely wouldn't be used on younger people, who have a fairly good chance of recovering, but more on older people who are at higher risk.
That makes sense. My understanding from talking to some of my sources is that this is perceived of as being a dirty drug, something that's generally used only as a last resort, something with an awful lot of side effects, diarrhea, other sorts of sickness, increased risk of other diseases and stuff like that. So it's obviously not a total solution, but it is an indicator of where the research is going right now. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. And our next piece, building up on the concept of the distributed environment for research, is from Bedikit.com by Megan Simpson. Grassroots database launched to help unemployed Canadian startup workers amid COVID-19. In an effort to support out-of-work Canadian startup employees amid COVID-19, a group of Canadian organizations have created a resource to help those employees find work and support. Started as a public Google spreadsheet, the Talent Help List, as it is being called, allows workers to add themselves and list their skills and the work they are looking for. Led by Adam Berkovici, co-founder and chief revenue officer at Luminari, Marianne Bulger, founder and CEO of Prospect, and Adam Gellert, founder and CEO of Hired Hippo, the list was created on Tuesday and has already amassed close to 500 people as of time of publication. The Talent Help List is a grassroots community hiring tool designed to help out-of-work talent in Canada's startup sector find remote work during the COVID-19 global crisis. The main resource, a collaborative spreadsheet, is modeled off of the single company layoff lists that have become popular in the Canadian tech sector.
This is the sort of thing that you expect to bubble up in a distributed environment where everybody's allowed to contribute. People come up with an idea, they throw it out to a wider audience. Sometimes it's a good idea. Sometimes it's embraced by the wider community and it turns into something different. Is that what's happening here?
Yes, I'd agree. That is what's happening here. And again, a distributed communication system like the internet enables this kind of thing to happen. And really, it is fulfilling the original promise of the internet, which was designed as a communication system that was distributed so as not to be easily disrupted and could be relied on in times of crisis. Originally, it was intended for nuclear war, but in a crisis like this, it would help just as much.
And I personally like the idea that there's not a centralized authority here. People are allowed to throw lots of ideas against the wall and see what happens. If we were in a very centralized authority where only the president of the United States or the premier of Russia or the prime minister of Canada is allowed to have their truth and the rest of us have to follow along, there'd certainly be far fewer options at this point for this pandemic. We wouldn't have any real ideas of areas to go for cures. We wouldn't have any amelioration mechanisms for some of the other problems that are being caused by the shutdown of the community.
And our next piece, continuing on the topic of distributed environments, is from Wired by Clint Finley, titled Global Officials Call for Free Access to COVID-19 Research. Government science advisors in a dozen countries are asking scientific journals to make data on the disease more widely available. Government science advisors from the US and 11 other countries Friday called on scientific publishers to make all research related to the coronavirus and COVID-19 more freely available. In an open letter, the advisors, including White House Office of Science and Technology Policy Director Kevin Druggelmeyer, asked the publishers to make data available through PubMed Central, a free archive of medical and life science research, or through other sources such as the World Health Organization's COVID database. The other countries whose officials signed the letter are Australia, Brazil, Canada, Germany, India, Italy, Japan, New Zealand, Singapore, South Korea, and the UK.
And this shows one of the requirements of an open distributed database. Useful data. Unless everybody knows what's really going on, we are all going to fall back on conspiracy theories and rumors and innuendo, and nothing's ever going to happen. So I think this story from Wired, talking about this initiative to governments to give out the information for free use, I think is kind of a useful thing. What do you think?
Totally agreed. And in an essentially wartime situation, pooling of knowledge, pooling of resources is absolutely essential. It was as true in World War II as it's true now. And our next piece might help explain why we're all being bombarded by email from anyone we've ever given our email address to. A piece from fastcompany.com titled, "Why Every Brand You've Ever Bought Something From is Sending You Coronavirus Emails." From policy updates to BFF hug letters, brands have responded to COVID-19 by flooding your inbox. Here's what they need to do to be smarter about their emails moving forward. Americans are still, this piece is by Jeff Beer, Americans are still only in the first week of expanded response to the coronavirus crisis. The social distancing, the working from home, the toilet paper memes. As our everyday routines become disrupted, so too were the wheels of commerce, resulting in unprecedented closures, layoffs, and a tidal wave of automated emails from every single company you've ever bought anything from in the history of your life. The 3 tiers of brand coronavirus emails. There seems to be 3 tiers of brand emails at this point. First, the service message. This is the most important and helpful, the ones that inform us about a change in service, an updated policy, or a relevant discount. It's the Gap telling you about store closures. It's Geico suggesting its insurance customers use its app while assuring them the company is committed to being responsive and flexible to our customers' needs. It's airlines keeping you posted on travel restrictions and flight updates.
And thank goodness I can still get my chicken from KFC.
Hallelujah.
What's the second level?
Tier 2 is the brand friend. This is where brands who have built a direct line of communication with customers feel obligated to at least acknowledge the situation, even if it's just to say hi with a "we're all in this together" drum circle vibe. Women's sleepwear brand Lunya, for example, simply thanked customers for their business and added, "At a time like this, we all need to laugh, share, connect, and be together," from a distance of about 20 feet. Take care of yourselves and each other.
And the third tier?
The third tier is the seemingly completely random, "we just happened to have your email, thanks for buying our cat food 3 years ago" message.
So what we got here is a bunch of emails from vendors, essentially, explaining that our store is probably closed, you can buy from us online, and please do so. Is that what this article is mostly suggesting?
It seems like it, and certainly one can't blame companies for trying to minimize their losses at a time like this and try to get people to purchase their products even at a lower volume. And those are the stories we're covering this week.
It's worth noting at this point that all of the articles we profiled on this podcast will be included in the show notes, so you can look at them yourself. And it's also worth noting that if you'd like to promote your event or activity, or if you think you might have insight into Canada's current innovation economy, you are welcome to send me an email at mr.chuck.black@gmail.com. And that's all for this week. We'll be back next week with more stories covering our current age of ingenuity.